The pale morning light barely penetrated the thick fog that enveloped the marshlands. Frodo, Sam, and their peculiar guide Gollum picked their way carefully through the treacherous terrain. The air hung heavy with an ancient sadness, carrying whispers of long-forgotten battles. Small lights began to appear in the mist, dancing and beckoning like friendly lanterns. Sam noticed his master being drawn to these ethereal illuminations, but Gollum's desperate warnings pierced through the hypnotic spell. The lights, he explained with fearful reverence, were candles of corpses, marking where countless warriors lay beneath the murky waters. Their faces, preserved by the swamp's dark magic, gazed upward with unseeing eyes, a grim reminder of wars long past. As their journey continued, the companions found themselves increasingly haunted by the sensation of being watched. Sam's sharp eyes caught glimpses of ripples in pools where no wind blew. Frodo, bearing his terrible burden, felt the weight grow heavier with each step through the stagnant waters. Gollum moved with uncanny certainty, his knowledge of safe passages proving invaluable despite Sam's lingering mistrust. The day grew darker, though it was barely noon, and strange bubbles rose to the surface of the deeper pools, releasing ancient air that carried the scent of decay. When they paused to rest on a relatively dry patch, Sam discovered that their lembas bread had become damp, adding to their mounting discomfort. The final stretch of their marsh crossing proved the most challenging. The fog thickened until they could barely see each other, and strange sounds echoed through the mist, clicking noises and distant splashes that seemed to follow their movement. Gollum became increasingly agitated, muttering about watching things in the mist. Frodo's hand often strayed to the ring beneath his shirt, its weight seeming to pull him toward the dark waters. Just as despair began to take hold, the ground beneath their feet gradually became firmer. The fog thinned enough to reveal the silhouette of mountains ahead, but with this hope came a new dread, for these were the mountains of Mordor, and their real trials were only beginning. Sam noticed dark shapes moving in the mist behind them, but when he turned to look directly, they vanished like smoke. The dense forests of Ithilien whispered ancient secrets as Frodo, Sam, and their dubious guide Gollum picked their way through the undergrowth. Shafts of golden sunlight pierced the canopy, creating a mystical dance of light and shadow on the forest floor. The air was thick with the scent of herbs and wild flowers, a reminder of gentler lands now left far behind. Their peaceful journey was suddenly interrupted by the sound of men marching and horns blowing in the distance. The trio quickly concealed themselves behind a curtain of hanging vines, watching as a column of Southron warriors passed below, their exotic armor glinting in the dappled sunlight. Sam's eyes widened at the sight of a massive mumuk, its tusks adorned with golden chains, carrying a fortress of warriors on its back. The moment seemed frozen in time until arrows began to whistle through the air, and the forest erupted into chaos. Under the cover of night, Faramir led Frodo through winding passages behind a thundering waterfall. The moonlight caught the spray, creating countless tiny rainbows in the mist. The secret refuge of the Rangers of Ithilien was a marvel of natural and human craft, with caves delicately carved into the living rock. But it was what Faramir showed Frodo in the forbidden pool that made the hobbit's heart sink. Gollum was fishing in the sacred waters, singing and talking to himself, unaware of the dozen arrows aimed at his heart. Faramir's men waited in the shadows, ready to loose their deadly shafts. Frodo faced an impossible choice: betray Gollum's trust or risk the creature's death, knowing either choice could doom their quest. In the depths of the hidden refuge, Faramir's chamber glowed with warm torchlight as he questioned Frodo about their journey. The walls were adorned with ancient tapestries depicting the glory of Gondor, their colors still vibrant after centuries. Sam's accidental mention of Boromir and the ring created a tension that could be cut with a knife. Faramir's eyes grew distant as he spoke of his brother's death horn echoing across the leagues. The revelation of their true quest hung in the air like a heavy storm cloud, while outside, the endless ranks of Sauron's armies marched towards the White City. As dawn approached, Faramir made a choice that would defy his father's wishes and challenge the very traditions of Gondor. But first, he had one more test for the travelers, one that would prove their worth or seal their doom. The stench grew stronger with each careful step Frodo and Sam took into the pitch-black tunnel. Their elven cloaks brushed against the damp walls, collecting centuries of sticky webs that seemed to whisper ancient warnings. Gollum, now more shadow than guide, slithered ahead, his pale eyes occasionally gleaming back at them like distant, cold stars. The air grew thick, not just with darkness, but with an oppressive weight that seemed to press against their very thoughts. Sam clutched the small crystal phial they had received in Lothlorien, its presence reassuring though still hidden. The tunnel twisted and branched, a maze designed to confuse and trap, and with each turn the hobbit companions felt less certain of their path. Strange echoes bounced off unseen walls, scraping sounds that might have been loose rocks or something far more sinister following their trail. The betrayal came swift and silent. One moment Gollum was there, his muttered complaints their only company. The next he had vanished into the darkness. Sam's warnings about their guide's treachery echoed in Frodo's mind as they found themselves alone in the oppressive darkness. The tunnel widened into a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in the gloom above. Here, the webs grew thicker, no longer mere strands, but massive sheets that hung like ancient tapestries of doom. Their feet stuck to the floor, each step requiring more effort than the last. The air grew still, and with that stillness came a new sound, a soft clicking that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Sam drew his blade, its ordinary steel offering little comfort in this place of ancient evil. Frodo reached for Sting, and its faint blue glow revealed what they had feared. They were not alone in this chamber of horrors. The monster emerged from the shadows, each of its 8 legs moving with terrible purpose. Shelob, spawn of Ungoliant, hunter in the dark for ages uncounted, had found her prey. In that moment of terror, Sam remembered the gift of Galadriel. The crystal phial burst into brilliant light as he raised it, filling the chamber with stars that had never before shone in this realm of darkness. The great spider recoiled, its massive form casting multiple shadows on the chamber walls. Frodo, momentarily freed from his paralysis of fear, struck out with Sting, its elvish blades singing in the darkness. But Shelob was ancient and cunning, and as the light began to fade, she maneuvered with horrifying speed. The chamber erupted into chaos as web strands snapped like bowstrings, and the clash between ancient evil and desperate courage reached its climax. In the confusion and darkness, a single cry echoed through the tunnel, followed by a silence more terrible than any sound that had come before. Sam's heart pounded against his chest as he crept up the winding staircase of Cirith Ungol. The cold stone walls seemed to whisper ancient warnings, while distant torchlights cast dancing shadows that played tricks on his weary eyes. His master, Frodo, had been taken by the tower's guardians, and time was running preciously thin. The small hobbit pressed himself against the wall as heavy footsteps echoed from above, the sound of iron-shod boots on stone. The voices of quarreling orcs drifted down, their harsh language making Sam shudder. Yet beneath their arguments he could sense something else, discord and mistrust that might prove useful to a clever intruder. In the highest chamber of the tower, Sam discovered something unexpected. The orcs had turned against each other, their greed and suspicion erupting into violence. Through the chaos, he heard something that made his heart leap, a clear voice singing in the darkness. Frodo was alive. The song, though filled with wariness, carried defiance. Sam's courage swelled as he gripped the phial of Galadriel, its light seeming to pulse in response to his determination. But between him and his master lay a maze of corridors patrolled by suspicious eyes, and somewhere above, a presence more terrible than the orcs kept watch. The reunion of the hobbits was both joyous and urgent. Frodo, though weakened by his ordeal, found new strength in Sam's presence. Together they faced the final challenge of escape, their hearts racing as dawn approached. The tower's shadows began to fade as morning light crept across the land, but with it came new dangers. Guards would be changing, and eyes from the dark tower itself would soon turn their way. Sam's discovery of orc garments proved invaluable, though the disguise was far from perfect. As they made their final descent, a terrible screech filled the air. A Nazgul was approaching. Their escape had not gone unnoticed, and now they faced a deadly race against time. The path ahead led into Mordor itself, but for now, survival was all that mattered. The tower of Cirith Ungol fell behind them as they plunged into the unknown, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that their journey's hardest part was yet to come.